I am delighted to introduce our host, Melissa Peck of Smartistry. Melissa, thank you so much for hosting tonight's event, and thank you, Dina, for being our guest tonight. Melissa, could you kick us off and tell us a little bit about yourself and the amazing Dina Weiss?
I would be super ultra delighted to do that. Thank you, Kristen, and thank you, team, for setting up tonight's event. I am so excited because the topic of financial empowerment is something extremely near and dear to my heart, as is Dina, our guest speaker today. And just quickly, I'll mention that Smartistry is an organization that I founded with Dina's help about 4 years ago because I felt a calling to help creatives, professional artists like ourselves get more in touch with their money, ways to build a more sustainable life and a sustainable practice, ways to get over that head trash that I had about personal finance. And in working with Dina and knowing Dina, I have learned so much. I am just so excited to share this space with Dina and let you all get to know her as I have over the years. And, you know, Dina, thank you for being here. I thought you might want to say hi before I carry on with your bio and background.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me in. I appreciate it. I do. You can go on.
We're so happy to have you here. I know I'm cavelling, but Dina's background is that she is the founder of Redwing Financial, where she serves as a financial life and business coach, as a financial advocate, and the chief investment officer for the firm. She began her career in the financial services industry in 2005 and employs a client-centered and educational philosophy in her practice. She works with individuals to ensure full understanding of the financial responsibilities of life, the impact of financial decisions, and the investment process, inclusive of those options available in today's complicated investment marketplace. She has also long been a writer, primarily in the theatrical arts, comedy and poetry, but now tailors her writing towards the more practical aspects of an individual's life. Outside of her financial practice, Dina holds her certification as a holistic health practitioner and philanthropically provides health coaching services to individuals seeking to live their best life. She actively volunteers her time to the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, the College Diabetes Network, Feed My Starving Children, and several universities, speaking on financial literacy, social entrepreneurship, and the importance of taking action. How about that for a bio? And welcome, Dina.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's very nice of you.
Well, it's so great to have you here. I mentioned on my Facebook Live a little bit before we started our session that when our team sat down with you, Dina, to talk about what might be beneficial to bring to this club for the group that joins us, we talked about some topics that are a little harder to nail down, harder to articulate. Things like, you know, how can we put a price on what we create? Okay. How can we find, how do we find a quantifiable value for our services? Those are some of the things we talked about in advance. So I wanted to spend some time with you just talking about some of those topics. And I thought maybe we could dive in for the benefit of the group today with just one question. How can an individual think beyond their upbringing and learn to do their own financial thing?
Well, and this is actually something that trips up just about everybody I know. And, and I see this a lot, especially with, professionals in the creative field, is that they grew up hearing, well, that's great, but how are you going to make money at it? And that's great, but you really can't earn a living. What's your plan B? And so on and so forth. And, to this, group in particular, but to everyone in general, I always say that, everyone has their own opportunity for a fresh financial start, a fresh financial outlook, and the ability to kind of learn from outside of what you're programmed to think. Oftentimes family will have their great intentions and they'll do their best to attempt to guide you. And they'll say, if you just do this, just stop doing what you're doing, just do this and then do this and then do this and then do this. And they give that kind of advice. But they're not really looking at it from the perspective of being you and doing the thing that you're doing and trying to develop exactly what you're talking about, the value of what you're doing, the meaning of it, and how to have a completely different relationship with money. So from that perspective, I want to point out that my belief is that money is little more than a tool. Money is not success. Money is not how we define ourselves. Money is a tool. And just like any tool, you need to learn how to use it and what to do with it and when it's the right tool for the job in order to truly kind of use that as a tool in your toolbox to build a foundation for success. So starting from there, I like to get people down and dirty into the idea of what is your financial knowledge, right? What do you even know? What do you think you know? And that's kind of where we start. So first things first, you've got to take a step back and say, okay, what do I think I know about money? And what do I think I know about the value of money? And from there, be able to go forward. So I'll breathe and then you can.
Well said. And, I think it is important before you can jump right to price tags, so to speak, and the sort of forward momentum items. It is really important to go back and just like touch base on where things stand for you. What are your core beliefs about money? Do you have any tools or like frameworks that you would use to like ask questions around that? For myself.
In terms of what specifically, Melissa?
In terms of like, what questions should I ask myself to really get a good understanding of my beliefs on money?
Okay, so I actually had this conversation with someone today, and it went kind of like this. We tend to think we know what's good for us, or what it is that we want. And so what I would start with is, what do you want your money to be able to do for you? What do you think you want from your money? And where do you want it to take you? Because again, this is a tool or a vehicle or something of that nature. So if you were in a relationship or seeking to have a relationship with a human being, you might say, okay, well, I think I'm looking for this, and you might put it in a specific package. It's got to come with blue eyes. It's got to come with this shape. It's got to come with, this level of intelligence, and so on and so on and so on. And what you don't really realize is what you need from the relationship rather than what you're looking for the relationship to be with. And so we have a tendency to assign money that same kind of almost superficial value that we assign to people. So that, if you're saying blue eyes and this tall and, this shape or whatever, it's kind of like saying, well, I need, $500,000 and I need it to be in this and I need to understand that and so on and so forth, rather than saying, okay, what kind of relationship do I even have with money? Is it healthy? Does it work for me? And so on. So we would start, Melissa, just with the idea of what are you trying to achieve for yourself? Is it financial independence? And if that's it, is it because you have debt? Is it because you are trying to start a business? Is it a combination of the two? Are you not connected with money? And that's where I would start, is to determine what your connection and relationship is with money already. It's almost like financial therapy. It's almost like financial therapy, truly.
That makes sense. And certainly it's an uncomfortable topic for many.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not something that's talked about at home. You know, I was fortunate in that I grew up in a home where my dad literally sat at a roll top desk, and he's old, but he truly had this great roll top desk, and he would sit there every morning and he would do the books, and he would just sit there and he would write out checks, and he had a very specific way of doing it. And every Saturday he would go to the bank, and I would get to go with him. And it was just, we're going to the bank. So I'd meet the banker and I'd watch him do this. So I had an understanding of kind of that rhythm of understanding, every day you check in with your money, and it's not a big production. It's just, he always had a thing. You touch the bill one time, right? You open the mail, you write the bill, he would put the date where the stamp would go. And that's how he would keep track of it. And so I saw someone who had a very, what I would call, functional relationship with money. But not everybody I know has that. Their parents don't talk about money. They don't talk about debt. They don't talk about credit cards. They think of it as almost like a dirty little financial secret. And, for people who are between the ages of, I'll say, 30 and 45, several of them through 2008 and 2009 saw a tremendous hardship in their families that they never saw coming. And as a result, have some form of what I call financial PTSD. So, that's I think a big, hindrance for a lot of people. So
I think what I've heard a lot in my experience with Smartistry and talking to a lot of creative people is not only do many have that background where talking about money or asking questions as a child, to find out about money is sort of taboo. We also grapple with this idea that math isn't for us. Right? Oh. If you're a creative, right-brained person, math isn't for me. Now, I know we have a lot of designers on the call today, and I will say, coming from a more literary background, that resonates with me, but perhaps not with you, because measurement and precision and sort of those left-brain skills are probably a lot more in a designer's wheelhouse than they were in mine. So I can say that as a caveat, but any thoughts or comments around that?
Absolutely. Here's the very simple thing. There are only a couple of things that you need to manage and understand money, truly. You need to be able to add. You need to be able to subtract. Okay. You don't need to be able to do complex trigonometric functions, none of that. You need to be able to add and subtract. You need to know how to use a pencil, which I prefer to a computer, and you need paper. And that is genuinely it. If you want a calculator to spice things up a little, that's perfectly fine, but.
And why a pencil, Dina? Oh, we've talked about this a lot, but will you share?
I will. So part of what I make every one of my new financial clients go through is the act of tracking their money. It's a way to reconnect to their money. And what I do is I have them, and anyone who wants to do this, I strongly suggest you do this just as a way to reconnect, really and truly. So when you hold a pencil, there's something very kindergarten about this, especially because we don't really use pencils much after kindergarten, and, except for standardized testing. But I think anyone can remember what it sounds like when you put pencil to paper. There's an actual sound. There's a very specific feel, especially with a number 2 pencil, and it's got a certain grit to it, and it sounds very specific on a piece of paper. So when you are taking and you're processing your money through your head, down through your arm, and into that pencil and onto paper, you are connecting both intellectually as well as physically. You are seeing it and you are hearing it. So in 4 different ways right there, you're connecting with what you're writing down. And it's almost as good as taking a dollar bill out of your wallet and handing it to someone. So you're actually reconnecting to the physical act of money in multiple sensory ways. And it is a very visceral experience, and people really and truly benefit from that.
Kristen mentioned in the comments, that's something that a lot of our attendees tonight have dealt with sketching, drawing and sketching. So I would mention, along those lines, you understand the tactile, multidimensional quality of that. Doing it on paper is so different than doing it on a tablet. And it's very much the same when you're dealing with the financial in and out, and, it's all the same.
Yes. And so here's a challenge for everyone. So if you're game for this and you do want to try the reconnect, try for 30 days to come home at the end of every day and just connect with your money for 5 to 10 minutes, pick a time, whatever time that is, and sit down at, find a spot, whatever it is, dining room table, roll top desk if you've got one, whatever it is, and just write down every nickel you spent during the day, every single nickel. Here's the challenge, okay? It's not just what did I take out of my wallet and hand to somebody. You're going to be aware of what you put on a debit card, what you put on a credit card, what's the automatic charge that hits your Apple phone through the apps, what do you have on auto pay that comes to you through your email. So you might have to go through this process of checking all the different places where you might have inadvertently or unknowingly spent money to actually reconnect and say, okay, where is my money going? Because 9 times out of 10, when somebody comes to me, they will say, I'll have them do this exercise where they're supposed to write down what they think they're spending every month. And then we seal that up. And then I give them exactly what I've just told everyone here. And then we compare the two at the end of the month. And invariably, people do not have any idea what they're spending. And when they say, gosh, I don't know where my money goes, it becomes very apparent by having done that. So
what a great activity and exercise. I would say, everybody that's joining us, I would love to see you share a reaction, just a gut reaction to that in the chat if you wanted to put down your thoughts and reactions to that idea of an exercise. Maybe we have some folks that'll try that out. We're at the beginning of a month, by the way, so perfect time to start it. I always have an angle. So we've talked about the idea of connecting the personal financial aspect to your practice, like laying that as a foundation. My personal philosophy of finance, my personal baggage, what I'm bringing to it. So now if we think about moving that forward and applying that same clarity to the idea of your finances as they pertain to your practice, your artistic practice, my question is, what are some key things to know for somebody? Most of our folks on the call are just getting started with an entrepreneurial venture. They're maybe making a diversification of what they offer. They're starting more streams of income, Dina.
Okay.
So what are some key considerations for them from a financial perspective as they're getting started? Is that a good place for us to kick it off?
Sure, absolutely. And so when you say they're starting new income streams, I'm assuming that we're not here to explore what those income streams are, but rather to look at how they play into kind of a bigger picture of creating your own entrepreneurial venture. Yes?
Yes. So to give you an example, practical example, maybe somebody is more involved typically in the production, performing arts production capacity, and that's their usual revenue stream. But during COVID, they've now started crafting and selling on Etsy or opened a shop there, or, started some sort of alternative stream of income. So that's what we're talking about.
And so you're looking for ways to manage that, integrate it, value it, et cetera?
Yeah.
Okay. So from the perspective, I think I'll start where you initially started, which was the idea of valuing it. Because I think too many people in the arts community have this mindset that they have no set value for what it is that they do, and that there's no way to kind of put a price on it, or that there's nothing that warrants being paid for, to be quite frank, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. And I think in recognizing and valuing just how special it is to be a professional creative, that alone will give you some authority in learning how to price, what you're doing. So when you're coming up with income streams, it's funny, I actually, I have a brown paper exercise that I put people through, and Melissa, I think I put you through this. And it's with the idea that you're trying to become a multifunctional, multifaceted entrepreneur. What you first need to come up with is, you've got this product, this thing that you create or what have you, but this is not the company. And that's where a lot of people start when they create an entrepreneurial venture, is that they think that this thing that they do defines what they are. And it's important to recognize that, if you're going to do these, this Etsy shop and then this, professional gig kind of, approach to working, that you find the commonality and the link between all the things that you're doing and how that ties into you and yourself as the entrepreneur. So in order to generally recession-proof any venture and any entrepreneurial venture, you need 5 distinct revenue streams. You need 5 things that you can draw on at any given point in time. And so you might think of it as, I have my Etsy shop where I create costumes for people who like live action role playing. And then I do theatrical production. And then I work for the school to make stuff for, stages or what have you. And then maybe, you do some kind of other thing. However, they're tied together. Okay, that creates kind of the you enterprise. So then you want to learn what your targeted demographic is, how are you going to reach those people, and so on and so forth. And it's important to think of, could you even have grant money that you might be able to get a hold of? That might be a revenue stream for you. And are there donations that you might be able to get? Could you have somebody who philanthropically, contributes to it in some other way? So is that more where you're thinking of, Melissa, in terms of going down that road?
I love that. Yeah. I mean, what we're talking about is really, how do you get from ideation, and thinking about all the things you could be. And let me just park here and say, I know for me, when I was coming out of grad school and I was like, I am a director. I am just that thing. I have studied that thing, and now that is what I am. I found it so challenging to understand that I don't have to only be one thing, that could mean a lot of different avenues to explore, a lot of different ways to build relationships, and so much more. It took me a while to make that mental leap. And if I can encourage everyone on the call, just one thing, it's to know that there's no one way to do creative.
No, there isn't. No,
so to get to ideation, sorry, go ahead, Dina.
No, please, go ahead.
Well, getting to that ideation point, and thinking and really opening up your mind to the me enterprise that you mentioned, mm-hmm. Yeah. and thinking big picture, that's something that a lot of us creatives are really good at. We're really good at thinking outside the box. So that's a great exercise that's sort of on the other end of the spectrum of the writing down everything that you spend.
Completely.
The minute. Yeah.
That's the minutia, indeed. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So as you get to that ideation phase, I think brass tacks, like what doesn't a new entrepreneur know about business finance that you think they should know?
Well, I guess I would say this. First thing that's important to know is what you don't know. And I know that that sounds pretty silly, but it's also, how do you find somebody that can fill in the blanks for what you don't know and don't have time or interest in learning? So as somebody who, I've started a lot of businesses in my life, and, creative ventures certainly, but then this, and as you mentioned in my bio, I'm a nutritionist, and I do all sorts of different stuff, but it's all combined really now under Redwing. But I don't do my own accounting, which is hilarious if you think about the fact that I run a financial company and I don't do my own accounting. And the reason is because I've got a phenomenal accountant who understands the way I run my business and my business lines and all the different aspects of it. And I don't need to know how to do that. I just need to know enough about how to do it to know how to pick the right person to do it. And if I didn't know enough about it to pick the right person to do it, then I need to find somebody who can actually recommend for me the right person to help me do that. So in knowing what you don't know, it's knowing how to partner with people who can get you to a place that you couldn't have gotten alone. So, I, for instance, have, a team. I have a partner in my work, and she's outstanding. And, she just, anything I need, she's in my corner and she will take care of business for me. And, if I don't have that, I can't do it all on my own. So I think, again, I recognize that I need somebody who can take care of business behind the scenes and kind of support some of it. So first things first, recognize that you will have shortfalls no matter who you are. It's okay. And that's why you actually team up with somebody who can do those things so that you're not trying to do all of it. So whether that's a hired person, a partner, a life partner, however you choose, it's, recognize that, we are not necessarily going to be able to do absolutely everything on our own, so.
Excellent point. So talking about, getting support, especially in the financial arena, how and when should somebody really seek professional advice on either their personal or their business, financial, and frankly, sort of business coaching even? When to get started with that?
So there are different times for different levels of advice. Okay, I would say consult with somebody before you get started really earning a lot of money. And the reason I say that is because if you start with nothing, then you have a clean slate and you get things set up correctly. It's kind of like if you try to create a filing system after you have 20 some odd years of paperwork, it's a little more difficult than trying to anticipate the filing system you will need to get going. So I would say at the very, very beginning of whatever venture it is that you're doing when you're creating your Me enterprise, you'll want to be able to talk to somebody right then and say, how do I set up my accounting so that I don't make a mistake? And, what do I need to know financially? How do I at least keep my records? And that way you've at least got those nuts and bolts in place. And that could be something very, very simple. You don't necessarily need business coaching, except maybe to start with the ideation of, again, the definition of Me enterprise. So, a good brown paper exercise will usually get somebody thinking, and I'll give you guys what that looks like. So I will hand this out so that everyone has it. It's fully created, so you guys can all see it and have it. So if you can do this kind of brain dump on paper, you might not need a coach. But if you do need a coach, it's somebody who can help you kind of put things in order from point A to point B, and then give you kind of an infrastructure build timeline so that you can at least say, okay, well, you're going to need to do this, and then you're going to need to talk to legal, and then you're going to need to talk to finance, and you're going to need to blah, 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 blah. Talking to legal might literally just mean going to Cyberdrive, Illinois, and registering your LLC. It might be something that simple. So if you've got somebody who's just a high integrity partner that that you can bounce this stuff off of, you might not need to engage in a coaching relationship. So but then when you do, okay, if you get to the point where this is rolling and you don't know what to do with what's coming in and you want to get ready for the next phase, yeah, then you might want to talk to a coach and say, okay, how do I manage what I've already got going, and then add this and get another plate spinning on a stick, right? So that, okay. And so that eventually you've got all these plates going and you get on the Tonight Show. And I've just dated myself.
There's still a Tonight Show.
Okay, good. But Johnny Carson's not on it anymore, I don't think. Yeah.
Not for a while, no. But that's a great tip. So, now that we're understanding that there's no one way to do, creative, and that you don't have to be an expert in all of the things, that it's okay to ask for help. And when you're asking for help, it's so much easier to get the help that you want if you've done a little bit of work beforehand to get really clear on where you've been and where you're going, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So then, as we kind of teed up when we got started on the session tonight, obviously there's a difference between selling a product and offering a service. We know that's a given. But can you talk to us about the process or a formula even for setting pricing and, how to think about that?
Absolutely. Sure. And it's actually very simple. And if anyone's ever worked in the restaurant industry, that's where this formula comes from. And so it's, what's the cost of goods that goes into your product? And now I'm going to use products, but then I'm going to move right to service. So, cause you said that, but the industry says, what's the cost of the product? And then, the time that goes into delivering that product, and then some profit. So it's, it's the raw materials, the production time, and then profit. And so when you think about the service, it's really no different. Okay. So depending on what you're doing, and can you give me an idea, Melissa, of just like, give me a service that someone's got so I can give it kind of parameters?
Let me turn it over to our attendees tonight. Can somebody put in the chat an idea of a product or service? And by the way, as we're typing in, very soon we're going to open things up for questions. So now is also a good time to be thinking about what you might want to ask Dina yourself in just a moment. Okay. All right. I'm not seeing any products or services. Perhaps everybody's still mulling that one over. But let's say I'm offering a garment. I'm making somebody a garment, a dress. Simple, right?
Okay, sure. So for that, you're obviously gonna take the price of the yardages of fabric. Okay. Any fasteners or embellishments that you're going to put on that garment, that's all going to be at cost. And so however you're obtaining that, you're going to literally just take the cost of all that. Then you need to price your time. Okay. So for your time, I want you to consider the idea of, it's going to take me 6 hours to make this dress. You need to price that time at your level of expertise in doing so. Okay, because as you get better and better and better at doing something, it takes you less and less and less time to get it done. So when you're just starting, you may charge someone, $75 an hour. But by the time you are an expert, you might charge $500 an hour based on the fact that you can take 6 hours of work and get it done in an hour. So you want to price your time according to your expertise and the speed with which you can work. And then those two should be, essentially valued near each other. And then you have profit. So you need to actually make profit. So you're not just being paid for your time, but you need to actually make a little profit as well. So if the materials and the embellishments and all of these pieces is going to run you we'll call it $120 or $150. And then you've got all this time and you're at an expert level and you're saying, okay, well, it's going to be $600 for my time. Okay. Then you'd probably say, here's my 150, here's my 600. I've got 750. I want to at least make, $180 profit. You just tack that on the top. And now you're at, total cost in of, I forget what my numbers were, but we'll say around $830 or $930. I think we're at $930. So, yeah. So
that sounds right.
Yes. But that's how I would, start that. Now I see focusing on I'd like to offer online courses for music production. This is what I see here. Is that?
Yeah. Addison, can you put in the chat whether that's a topic that you're looking for more support around? Maybe we could help you out with that as a side note to the conversation here. Thank you for that. And Sarah put in the comments, tech pack creation. I'm afraid I don't know enough to be dangerous on what that entails.
I can chime in a little bit. So Tech Pack is basically the guidebook on how to create a garment. So basically a designer designs a garment and then somebody creates the information to translate that to the production team that actually builds the garment. Did I paraphrase that succinctly, Sarah and Kat? Oh, AIBI is having a Tech Pack seminar this week. Awesome. But yeah, how would you go about pricing that?
So what is it that's actually being created, if I can ask?
Data, basically. I mean, you can print it. I think probably most often these days it is communicated electronically. So it's mostly the time, I think, that would go into that. It's more of a service than a product.
But is it which is perfectly fine. So is it being written? Is that what's being happened? Is this content that's being written almost like a tech manual?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sort of like a manual, but for making a garment. It's like the instructions.
Sure.
Like if you're sewn from a pattern before, it comes with the instruction guide.
Sure.
Got it.
Okay. Yep. And so in that case, again, what you're talking about here is you're pricing in not only the amount of time it is taking you to do the actual writing, but the level of expertise that you have that allows you to write as quickly as you are. So if you're a tech pack writer, from what I can gather from this, you are somebody that can look at something being made and translate that into instructions that are readily accessible to anyone in the industry. Am I accurate in that? Perhaps, hopefully. So,
yes, you are.
Okay. So what you want to consider is how long it would take somebody who doesn't understand how the garment is being made to try and fumble through creating that. That is how you recognize the fact that you are an expert in something that somebody else is not. And that is the biggest key to recognizing how to price what you are doing. So if somebody else is not going to be able to communicate that clearly, you have a premium in your knowledge and in your skill set. And if you are a really good writer and you are able to put something succinctly and accurately, what comes to mind is I think there's a YouTube video out there of a dad who told his kids to give him instructions on how to make a peanut butter sandwich. And if you have an opportunity to look at that, then you will find out what a garbage tech writer looks like. It's those kids. So, and that's terrible to say, but it's the truth. So, but you want to price it based on how long it would take the average person to do that job. So if the average person is going to take 10 hours to describe how to make this, elaborate garment, okay, and you price the average person at $45 an hour, if it takes you, call it half the time, well, you should get at least $90 an hour. So you want to consider how much would it cost how much would it take an average person to do that? And then let's assume $50,000 a year to an individual. So if I was doing it that way, I would do the math this way. I would say $50,000 a year divided by 52 weeks, divided by 40 hours a week, that's 24. That's $24 an hour. So let's say they can do it in 10 hours. They're going to price that out at $240. So if you can get that done in 2 hours, you should still charge $240 right out of the gate. And as you get better and better and better at that, you know, you might go to $300 an hour because you're going to take less and less time to do it. Is that a fair way of looking at it?
Yes, I think so. A question from Kat. How do you factor in overhead, like office space, printer paper, non-billable time like meetings and working on your accounting?
So this is where your multiple revenue streams come in. Okay, so because you want to be able to have what I would call passive income that isn't always you working. Because there has to be a way for you to be earning money, and that's one of those 5 income streams or however multiple income streams that you want to generate to where you are actually covering those hard costs. What I like to suggest, and Melissa is very well aware of this, is I believe in a $0 startup, and I believe that you really don't need very much money to start a company, and most companies that go on to live very successful lives do so because they were started out very frugally. So when you are doing that pricing and you're setting aside that you know, you're saying that you're billing $240 an hour for your technical writing skills, here's where your financial management comes into play, because that $240 doesn't go in your pocket. And Kat, this is directly to what you're saying here. So you're not factoring in overhead in the pricing. You are factoring in overhead in how you divvy that $240. So you will recoup the cost of your materials, and you will pay yourself some of what your time is, and then another third of it is going to go back into your business. So you're going to constantly be reinvesting in yourselves. And so that's how you take that. And so you're definitely going to have an aspect of your business that is sacrificing some of your personal comfort so that you can get the business rolling. And then as you gain more notoriety and you develop additional income streams, then what happens is the revenues can come in from these 3 to 5 to 7 or however many different strains all at the same time, or strings all at different times. And then it automatically starts feeding itself. So that's where I would start.
Great point. Kat, if you have any additional questions to follow on from that, feel free to put them in chat. So we talked about the very clear-cut formula for pricing your content. And then let's say you calculate your formula and then you feel that thing that many of us artists feel, which is it's going to be too much. I'm asking too much. How do you overcome that head trash? Because that's what it is, right?
It's totally head trash. It's totally head trash, especially if you have priced it formulaically. And, you know, the reality is everybody wants a cheap deal. Everybody wants a cheap deal. And that doesn't mean that you get to be negotiated down. And you have got to start with your own integrity. This doesn't mean that you have a big ego about what you're capable of. And, you know, you can do a little research to find out what the average is for somebody who's doing what you're doing. But in all fairness, you know, if your work speaks for itself, which my guess is that it does, people don't usually get independent contracts because, you know, you're just getting started. So you have to recognize the fact that, you know, if someone says, well, you know, that's too much, at least give them the opportunity to tell you that and say, well, you know, can you come down a little bit? Don't give them the first line of the haggle. You don't want to start there and say, well, you know I'm probably not worth this much money. You know, you say, my price is this. This is what I charge. These are my fees. And I will tell you this, Melissa, and to everyone else here, this is even difficult for me. It is difficult for me because I don't like to charge people, and it's just not my thing. I do it for different reasons, but it's not because I don't feel like I'm worth it. I do know that I can get somebody from point A to point B, but where I have an issue with it in my own, where my head trash comes in is in saying, I can really get you there in an hour. I'll just give you the hour. Okay. But everyone who is on this call has an actual talent and a skill that they're really good at. Okay. Not to say that I don't either, because if I can get someone from point A to point B in an hour, that's great. But I've actually gotten to the point now where I can philanthropically give that hour to somebody. Don't sell yourself short in the sense that, get what you're worth, which is probably more than you believe, and probably a lot more than you believe, because get over the idea that you have to be, a scientist or a doctor or an attorney or whatever to be financially very well off. I had the distinct pleasure of working with lots of people in the arts early on in my career. I was a music producer. I worked in galleries, and I was a theatrical producer and so on. And I knew so many people who had so much talent that they deserved really good money. They really did, because they were doing things that people couldn't do. And I would venture to say that just about everybody on this call is exactly the same. You can do something that somebody else can't do, so get paid for it. So there, I'll just kind of, slap that head trash out of your heads if I can.
I love it. I love it when you slap my head trash away. So with that, we're just starting to get things cooking on Q&A. Kristen, shall we open things up? What do you think?
Addison said that they are having trouble focusing when you're building a brand and you're just starting out, and there's a lot of things to try to do at once, social media, an email list, creating a course, finalizing website design, and just sort of like how to prioritize all of that in creating a timeline when there is all of that stuff you're trying to do all at the same time to get clients and also produce the work and all of that. So any suggestions on sort of how to triage some of that?
Absolutely. And this is where the brown paper exercise I'm talking about comes into play. And Kristen, just so you know, and Melissa and Kat, I will send you guys this actual graphic so that you can hand it out to anyone in the class. You actually, Kristen, this is the way I like to think of it. Okay, where do I need to wind up? Because you need to know where you're going to need to wind up first so that you can back your way to here. So it's almost like we need to get out of the house by 8 a.m. and 2 kids need showers and they need breakfast, and we need to get the laundry out of the machine and so on and so forth. And you think, okay, we're going to come backwards, here. And it's like, okay, well, we need to be up by 5:30. And you need to be in the shower by 6:15, and you need to be in the shower by 6:32, which means you need to be out by 6:30. So you back into it, Addison. And I'm like I say, if that's something that is, a stumbling block for you, that's where someone like myself, who's really good at taking that big picture and coming back to the first thing, I can back you into it. And once you've done it once, you can probably repeat it. And that's why I'm saying, if I can show you at one time, you probably never need me again. But if you do, like I say, then you know that we work fine together, and that's it. So hopefully that's helpful.
That's great, Dina. Thank you.
Of course.
Awesome. What other questions do we have?
There was another question, I think, when we were sort of talking about pricing different products about that music course. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how to price classes or education, where you might have multiple clients attending a single event. How does that change the pricing formula?
Well, that is a much different pricing formula, but it also depends on what you're delivering. Okay, so if you have to consider, is the group class group by nature, or is it group by convenience? And what I mean by that is are you doing a group setting where everybody's going to get a little bit out of it, or are you doing a group setting where everyone's going to get a lot out of it? So is it more beneficial to be in a group, and is it more conducive to learning more things? Because in that case, you want to price that higher than if it's just a group attending something. So because how specific the content is, will dictate the pricing of it. So if you're giving generalized content, when I used to do nutrition seminars back in the day, way back when, and I was giving general content and I was just going to be talking at people, which is a horrible way of putting it, but it was the truth. If I was going to be talking at people, it was $20. It was $20. You come and that's it. And if I got, 10 people, or if I got 30 people, I was still making just $20 a person. And that was fine. But if I was doing an interactive session and I was limiting the class size to, this is going to be 6 people, it's going to be a workshop, we're going to have an exchange, we're going to work on you personally, and so on and so forth. Well, then I'm pricing it almost like everyone's an individual attendee. Then it's $75 per person. And so you have to consider like the level of interaction. So if it's just you talking at people and you're not working one-on-one or one-on-two or what have you, well, then you're literally pricing your time. And if I'm at, $240 an hour, or if let's just say for just easy math, I'm pricing myself at $200 an hour and I'm figuring I'll get 10 people. Okay, well, I want $20 per person. It's that simple. But if it's one-on-one, you want to get that premium price because you're probably going to be stopping and interacting and having that conversation, whether that's a music lesson or whatever it is. If you're going to be giving individual coaching within the group lesson, price it more like it's, an actual lesson. So.
Which also makes sense because probably if you're doing that kind of individualized attention, you have to cap it at a certain number of people. You can't have 50 people who are getting individual attention in an hour.
That's exactly right. Yes. Yeah. And so again, right there, Kristen, this is a good point here, is that's 2 income streams. One is a seminar, one is a workshop. So those are 2 different kinds of income streams that bring you in 2 different kinds of dollar amounts. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So hopefully that helps.
And then you take your content. Oh, did we have another audio? Oh, I was going to say, and then you take your workshop and you put it online, which is my passion area. And then you can take that price down because you have scale and you have your time back. So it's a different model altogether. And if you have questions about that, please talk to me because I just love to talk about it.
And she's so good about it. And that's a 3rd income stream right there, is online content. So, and you can have multiple types of online content to where you have, royalty-free online content where you've got 2-minute little videos for Instagram or what have you. And then you've got your YouTube channel where you're actually getting a subscriber. So that's that passive income I'm talking about, is that subscriber method.
How do you know when you've got something that's when you've got an idea that's worthy of turning into a business?
What is it that's important about what you're doing? So I'm going to ask these questions about you. Okay. So whatever it is that you've got this idea, is there something important about what you do? And if so, how is it different than anything else? Okay. So here's my favorite example. The most saturated market in all history is the lemonade stand market. This is a tried and true business model that we've seen done on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of street corners. And yet every summer, here comes a whole new crop of young entrepreneurs with their own special, recipe. And invariably on one end of the block, you've got the Country Time originals where they're putting out their standard, thing. And then over here, you've got this homemade recipe that's coming new to the neighborhood. And the fact is what you really have to think about is not whether or not there's value in what you do, but how is it different and what does it bring? right? Are you now the lemonade stand that doesn't just have lemonade, but you also have apple juice, and is at a premium, right? Because, not everybody likes apple or lemonade. And, are you going to build your business model over the summer to where you're handing out cookies as well? And, are you going to carry that business into the winter where you're going to make it a hot chocolate stand so you can really differentiate through the winter? So it's not about whether or not, if you create the thing, someone will want it. Someone will want it. I mean, that's literally what trends are. All you have to do is create the thing no one's ever heard of, or create the thing that everyone's heard of and just do it in a completely different way. So there's unlimited licensure in entrepreneurship, and that's the beauty of it, is that we are only limited by our imaginations. And people who are artistic and so on and so forth, my God, that's where imagination lives. That's where it lives. And so, if you can find a way to take the thing that's interesting, turning it into business means that you have to at least manage discipline. You have to manage your discipline. And so if it's something that you're interested in doing, I would say that your first question you really need to ask yourself is, can I do this over and over and over again? Or am I going to hate this after I've done this a third time? So, because it's about, not just what you're delivering, but how regularly you can deliver it and keep delivering it, even when the idea is tiresome.
I have a bit of a question though. I know in our prep conversation for this call, Dina, we talked about sort of the differentiation between an entrepreneur and a freelancer, and how would you define that difference, and how should a freelancer approach finances differently than an entrepreneur? Or is it the same?
It doesn't have to be that different. Okay. So it really and truly depends on how you set up the entity that is earning the money. So as a freelancer, you're somebody who just does the thing. Like, you do the thing and you get to choose where you go and who you do it for. So the difference between freelancing and entrepreneurship is truly about innovating around a central theme. So you're actually kind of creating an entity, which is kind of what it means to be an entrepreneur. You're creating an entity. So therein lies the definition, and it starts the same way. So as a freelancer, you're not creating an entity. You're just a person who's like a journeyman plumber versus somebody who works for the union. So they both can do the same things, but they can't always get the same jobs. So an entrepreneur could be hired for a different kind of job than a freelancer could, because it's a company, it's an entity. So there's the differentiation, but both are technically gig people.
Right.
So you're still gigging. It's just the terms under which you are, and really and truly the situations that you can find yourself in by way of doing that. So hopefully that helps define it a little bit.
Yeah, I think it does. It's a very fuzzy and messy area, I think, for a lot of different people, especially in the arts.
Sure.
I recently set up an LLC for myself, finally, after years of thinking about doing it. So
Great.
It was sort of a self-serving question.
Sure. Well, then you've just become an entrepreneur.
I have. So someone has asked, do you have accounting software or sites that you recommend, especially for novices, and especially things that are very cheap or free? Because just starting out, I know that I don't like spending money.
Well, for accounting software, I mean, honestly, you can just use free Excel. I mean, it's you can use almost like, it depends on what you need your software to do for you is really the question. So what are you keeping track of? How are you keeping track of it? That would be the question that I would have first. And there's not a lot of free stuff out there that's really robust. I give all my tools away. So if somebody said that they, need something, if you just need an Excel spreadsheet that works for you, it's simple. I can put that right together for you. So, it's not, There's not, I mean, you can use, I'm sure, an app, but the reality is you're still going to want to set it up so that it's right for what you're doing. And accounting doesn't need to be super, super involved or complex. I mean, literally you're keeping a spreadsheet of, these are my expenses and these are, it's more important that you know what counts as a business expense than how you keep track of it in a spreadsheet. So I'll be happy to pull together resources though for everyone and give you a nice follow-up email, and I'll give you some good stuff if you'd like. Kristen, if you can just follow up with me and summarize the chat for me, I'll be happy to put together an email that can go back through you, and I'll give some resources so that everybody's got that.
Great. As long as everyone signed up through Eventbrite, we should have your email. We can follow up there. But if you did not sign up for Eventbrite and somehow are here through some other means, please go ahead and direct message me or email so I can make sure that you're on that list of follow-up resources. Okay. Personally, I use and.co. It syncs with my bank account, and then I can assign each transaction to a project, which is really helpful for what I do. And then someone here has said that they use GoDaddy bookkeeping, which has automatic tracking. So there are some community suggestions, but we'll follow up with some of Dina's ideas later on. So sort of promoting an idea for an audience of the idea that they want to convey is, if you have creative block, I can help you get back into your flow, but struggles with phrasing for that. So sort of how to, I guess that's sort of some of what you both do in terms of some coaching and stuff. That sounds like a very coaching sort of method. So how do you talk about your coaching and promote that and how to help people get past their creative block in terms of like how you get clients onboarded for that? I hope that I'm phrasing that question in a helpful way.
Are you looking for the actual message?
Yeah, I think struggling with phrasing the message.
So you have creative. So I'm just going to read, if I can, the chat here. So what I want to convey is, you have creative block. I can help you get back into your flow. Struggle with phrasing. Okay. So
yes, phrasing the message without sounding like I have a big ego. I mean, I say have a big ego. If you're good at what you do, have an ego, but
have an ego, but don't be obnoxious.
Yep.
So I think where I would go with that is, okay, phrasing this message without sounding like a big ego. So come from the place of what it is that you are able to get someone to do. So instead of saying, I can do this thing for you, it's not about that. It's, are you having trouble, I mean, you see this all the time, are you stuck? Are you this? Are you that? We can help, kind of thing. Instead of calling it breaking writer's block, you say that maybe you're really good at generating the electricity in someone's brainstorming session. So here's what I would suggest then, Addison. What it sounds like you're trying to get somebody to do is engage in an exercise with you as their coach. So imagine that you were doing this as a weight trainer or a physical training coach. How would you differentiate yourself in that way? So if you can think of it as, because you're legitimately getting somebody creatively in shape, are you going to be running the marathon of your creative life? If so, then what you really and truly need is, a personal innovation trainer. And I'm uniquely qualified to do that because I've created this, series of exercises that are all around, electrifying your psyche and so on and so forth. Well, I think there needs to be enough on a landing page that somebody has an idea what you're all about. I mean, to me, if I've got to dig too deep somewhere to find out what in the world this is, I'm done. I'm not interested. I'd rather read, 4 sentences and know what you're all about than have a teaser and have to go another page in and have another teaser and so on and so forth. So
right.
I'd
So
also
I think
mention one of the cool things you can do is look for examples of sites that speak to you. Model, jot down things that you reacted negatively to, or things that you were like, they got me on the hook. Well, and then, go back through and say, well, what was their method? First, they caught me with a hook. Then they had a testimonial. Then they, just unpack what you see that speaks to you, and you will be a very good barometer of the audience that you want to connect with.
Mm-hmm.
I think also in terms of that particular question, and also your earlier question to like how to triage all the things you have to get started up, is you don't have to do everything. You don't have to do social media and an email list. You don't have to do all of those things. I actually just recently decided I'm not going to do an email list because that's not how I like to be interacted with. I get so many emails from things and it's never where I look. I'm just going to focus my time on Instagram because it is where I connect with other artists and other brands. And so that's where I'm going to focus my time and attention instead of trying to do a little bit of everything and then end up doing sort of a crappy job of everything.
Right. Yep.
So I think that's another strategy is you don't have to do all of it. Your website doesn't have to tell everything if you have a strong YouTube channel or a strong social media presence.
And word of mouth is the very best way to get out there anyway. So if you've made the difference, Addison, especially in what you're doing, if you've made the difference in someone's creative life and you've busted through that writer's block, I mean, that's a unique thing. And there are so many people who need, that you just, like Kristen was speaking to, if one of the things on the brown paper exercise is, how will you expand your reach? And hint, it may not be through social media. You got to figure out where are your people going to be? Where are they? And so, where are you meeting people who have writer's block? So, they might not be scrolling through Instagram. They might be, but they might not be.
Dina, this might be a quick one, but I just like to put these kind of clear things out there. What is the difference between an insurance salesperson, a financial advisor, a financial planner? What do all those things mean?
So it's really defined individually. So you can be all three, which I am, or you can be, one or the other. And somebody who is solely an independent insurance agent or insurance salesman is going to sell you insurance, period. I am a licensed insurance agent, but that doesn't mean I am marketing insurance to everyone. So I'm a financial advisor and I am a financial planner. So a financial planner is somebody who helps you plan and organize your finances. A financial advisor is going to advise you on all aspects of your finances. So not just how to make financial decisions, but very likely investing and how to help you invest and so on and so forth. And we'll give you significant amounts of advice rather than just planning strategies. So planner helps you plan and strategize, and then an advisor will advise you on your entirety of your financial life, and then an insurance salesman will sell you insurance. But, I'm a financial advisor and planner and insurance person. So you want to just know that whatever needs you've got are covered by whomever. So that's kind of the umbrella.
And here's sort of a follow-up question, because this is something I sort of only recently learned about myself. When you are looking for a financial planner or a financial advisor, what are things you should look for and what are things that you should avoid? The word fiduciary comes to mind.
Everyone throws this word around, okay? And even in the industry. So are you a fiduciary? I always love when someone asks me that question, because my first follow-up question then is, do you even know what the answer is? Because if I tell you yes, what does that mean to you? So to be a fiduciary, yeah, I'm a fiduciary, and I didn't need the industry to tell me to be a fiduciary. What that means is that I've got your best interest ahead of my own. So if you don't feel that from somebody, that they, aren't actually considering you and your best interest first, they can tell you that they're a fiduciary, but that doesn't mean they're going to act like one. So when you're looking for a financial advisor, it's important that you find someone that you, A, connect with, B, who can speak to you exactly where you are to the point where you can understand what they're talking about clearly and feel empowered by what they're saying. And I would say a third point is that you will want somebody who doesn't talk down to you and doesn't say, well, you can never understand this. I've known plenty of advisors who are like, well, let me just tell you how to do that. And you just, I was raised by that and that got me where I am here. So how about you go ahead and just teach me something? So for me, a good financial advisor is somebody whose goal, and this is always my goal, is I want to get you to the point where you don't need me. This is, I want you to feel, like I say, empowered. And that's what we were all about tonight. If you need to lean on me for the rest of your life, I have done a horrifically bad job of being a financial coach. So, because this is not difficult stuff to do. And you can always have somebody in your corner. I have people that know what they're doing who said, yeah, but I still want you there. Okay, well, that's fine, But at the same time, you shouldn't need me at a certain point. Otherwise, I've not done my job. So be mindful of slick people. Be mindful of slick people. Okay. We've all been taken by the flashy, ooh, oh my gosh, he drives a Benz, or whatever. And that just says that he's overcharging. So, in my opinion, but, it's just, if you get kind of that creepy feeling, or if someone's just saying, I'll give you all that information if you just roll this over, and I just want to manage all your money real quick, and then we'll talk once I make a commission off of you. That's not. You should be able to get some good information before you need to pay for some advice. So, does that help? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So another question popped up in the chat. How far out should you be trying to forecast your business budget or plan?
Probably not much beyond a year, to be honest. You can framework it out 5 years, but you have to consider, and I like to give this as a kind of a metaphor for people. So imagine you were planning your life when you were 5 years old, and how that would apply now. And then imagine if you were planning it when you were 10 or 15. As you go, every chunk of 3, 5, 10 years, you are a wholly different person. And likewise, so is your business and how you're running it. And it's important to keep it fluid. And so you need to keep some buffer in there, and you budget for the day-to-day and you budget for the year-over-year, but then you actually have to keep some fluidity so that you are not really and truly planning and strategizing beyond the next evolution of yourself and your company.
Melissa and Dina, any last-minute thoughts?
None from me, unless, Melissa, you have any?
No, I just want to say thank you again so much, Dina. And thank you so much also to the Reluctant Entrepreneur Club team. I'm so happy and energized by this space. It's really great to be able to have these kind of talks and dig in on some good questions. Thank you, everyone, for participating.